The Michigan State Spartans are only 2 wins away from hitting the over on their preseason win total of 4.5. Michigan State's 40-0 shutout win over Prairie View A&M was by far their easiest matchup of the season. They have Boston College this coming Saturday on the road, then they host Ohio State, and then travel to Autzen Stadium to take on the Oregon Ducks. So these next 3 games, Michigan State is a sure underdog in, and there's a good chance they'll go 0-3 in those next 3 games. But I want to talk about the here and now, and I think there's also a good chance based off of what I have seen against Maryland and also what I saw in this game, really this scrimmage against Prairie View A&M, that suggests that Michigan State could maybe sneak out a win against these next 3 opponents who are very challenging, but particularly against Boston College, who is nowhere close to Ohio State and who's probably not very close to Oregon either, though they played a Missouri team who I'm very high on admirably. The Michigan State Spartans did what they needed to do, and that's good for a coaching staff and a roster that is in year 1, that is still undergoing, I would say, fusion, because the roster's made up of several newcomers. Penalties were a problem, but Michigan State did not turn over the football once. No interception thrown, no fumble. Michigan State had a pick 6, so they won the turnover battle. The defense was dominant, and the offense succeeded. And given the previous 2 weeks where the offense was very up and down, I know it's Prairie View A&M, but when Aiden Childs is a 91.9 QBR, doesn't turn over the football, and Nate Carter and K'Ron Lynch-Adams are churning on the ground, it's a good day to be a Michigan State Spartan. Before I continue my analysis of this game and talking about really what these first 3 weeks have told us about Michigan State and how that translates to future success, I want you, yes you, to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, to share this video and this channel around to other college football fans you know, and to also hit the notification bell so that you can get notified when we release new college football content. College Football with Sam prides itself on being the best Big Ten football channel, and we aspire to be the best college football channel in the world. And you, and only you, can help us achieve that goal, can help us attain that desire. We're just over 18,600 subscribers right now, and we're trying to hit 20,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and you can help us do that. You can by sharing this video and this channel around to others. Liking the video helps us get into the algorithm and get more engagement, and your subscription and you hitting the notification bell ensures that we have another dedicated football fanatic. And whether you agree with me or disagree with me a lot or a little, I love to have you on, and also to hear your input. So make sure to give your input on this game and for the future on any games that I cover in the comment section. The more we communicate, the more discussions we have with each other, with you and me, or you and another commenter, the better. And if you want to support the channel monetarily, you can check out my Patreon page via patreon.com/CFBWSam, or you can find the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Same with my merchandise store. But let's get back to this game. Michigan State overall, like I said, did what they needed to do. There was no letdown. There was no struggle session. There was just efficiency. Not a Tennessee versus Kent State level of efficiency. Not an Ohio State versus Western Michigan level of efficiency. But we are in year 1. I have been open and honest with the fact that I think Jonathan Smith and Joe Rossi and Brian Lindgren and all of Michigan State staffers, Mike McDonald, the strength and conditioning coach, I have been open with the fact that I believe the Spartans have one of the best, if not the best, staffs in the Big Ten and one of the best staffs in all of college football. I've been open about that. I think they are really, really good. I think they're elite in terms of staffers, but they have limited pieces and limited amounts of high-octane players to work with. They need to recruit better, both via the portal and especially through high school. They need to clean up the mess that Mel Tucker and Scotty Hazelton and Jay Johnson left for them. They need to clean that up. And in this game, they're getting better and better, clearly, game in, game out, at cleaning up these messes. Michigan State had 11 penalties for 102 yards. They gave Prairie View A&M 102 extra yards. They held Prairie View, though, to 140 total yards in general. And the one time that Prairie View A&M was getting into Michigan State's territory, Michigan State responded with a over 100-yard pick six by Charles Brantley, the legend who intercepted Cade McNamara in 2021, but outside of that isn't known for much, is, I think, clearly growing under Joe Rossi and this elite defensive staff that Michigan State has put together. And there's just, honestly, this team, from the win over Maryland last week, the fact they faced adversity, couldn't get out of their own way, and still found a win against Florida Atlantic. This team's different than prior Michigan State teams. It's different. And they controlled the clock with 33 minutes and 57 seconds of possession. And they had 458 total yards, 22 first downs. They were 8 of 11. 8 of 11 on third down. Didn't attempt a single fourth down conversion. They kicked a few field goals, 2 of them. Jonathan Kim hit a 33-yarder and a 23-yarder. Missed an extra point, but was overall 3 of 4 on extra points, and he's a reliable kicker. I'm sure that was just a mistake. Nate Carter and Kayron Lynch-Adams had a good day. Jack Velling had a good day. Isaiah Johnson, had a great day. Nick Marsh, he had 2 receptions for 27 yards. And is it Isaiah, or I think it's, or maybe Isaiah Johnson, true freshman, I do believe. So Michigan State is getting a lot of young players, whether it's Aiden Childs or their receiver core. They're getting everyone involved, or players on defense who want to step up. I mean, Ken Talley was involved in this scheme yet again, someone who's appearing to be, I think, a potential difference maker. And the defense had 3 sacks, 10 TFLs. They held Prairie View A&M on the ground to 0.6 yards per carry. Even if you didn't adjust for sacks, Prairie View A&M had 24 carries for 39 yards. Did a very good job stopping the run. And Cameron Peters was 9 of 17 for 123 yards and a pick. So yards per attempt was pretty high for an FCS team against Michigan State, who's a Power 4 team whose defense has looked night and day different in a good way compared to last year's defense. But with injuries in the secondary and with how poorly coached they were for 4 years, it doesn't shock me that the secondary still has some things to figure out. Overall, I look at this game as proof, not strong proof. The Maryland game was very, I think, indicative that this team is different and that they are improving. Because Maryland had that game in hand. Maryland, after week 1, solely based off of that one sample size, looked like the much better team. I thought after week 1 they were simply the better team, and that with Michigan State, traveling after a rough opener, that there could be some issues, especially with their turnovers from, Aiden Childs and the fact that they were highly penalized. But they proved me wrong, and I'm actually kind of happy about it. College football is good when Michigan State's good. When Mark D'Antonio was at Michigan State and they were constantly challenging Ohio State, that made the sport better because no one else was going to challenge Ohio State when D'Antonio was there from 2010 to 2015. James Franklin did 1 year in 2016, and then from 2017 all the way up to 2021 when Michigan beat Ohio State on that final weekend of the 2021 regular season, no one challenged them in the Big Ten. I mean, Iowa and Purdue beat them, but that was it. That was honestly it. 4 straight Big Ten championships. And Mark D'Antonio, with far less talent and far less finesse and just a different type of team than Ohio State, as an underdog, overcame Urban Meyer and the Buckeyes, one of the best head coaches in college football history. That's Urban Meyer. And Michigan State under Mark D'Antonio overcame him twice in 2013 and 2015. And if they beat him in 2014, Michigan State would have been in the playoff, and they were a team that was probably good enough to win the national championship that year. College football's good when Michigan State's good, and I don't think this team is good yet. But they're clearly better, miles ahead of where they were last year in strength and conditioning, in trench play, in discipline in the sense of staying on their assignments. In terms of penalties, this is one of the most penalized teams in the country. They've averaged over 10 penalties per game for 3 games in a row, and I think over 10 yards per penalty as well for 3 games in a row, or just around that number. Not a team that's disciplined in terms of keeping the yellow handkerchiefs in the pockets of the referees. But in terms of staying on their assignments, in terms of communicating, and of being a team that puts itself in positions to win, this is a much better team than last year, and certainly in 2022 as well. I think that Michigan State could give some teams this season, outside of really Ohio State and maybe Oregon on the road, but Oregon's only shown me one elite performance. I mean, credit Ohio State has done the same as well, but Ohio State's performance against Western Michigan, and I know Western Michigan's bad, they looked like one of those elite teams that can't control their weak strength of schedule, and they're just, kind of beheading people left and right and tearing them apart. Oregon didn't exactly do that against Oregon State. They won in dominant fashion, and I know Oregon State's better than Western Michigan, but their struggles in the trenches the first 2 weeks tells me that if they have an off game like that in Big Ten Conference play, maybe Michigan State can give them some problems. Michigan State can give Michigan some problems. Absolutely. Michigan's secondary has some questions, and Aiden Childs, either he throws a pick or he completes a deep ball or has some phenomenal NFL throw to extend the drive of the Spartans. And Michigan State can beat Indiana, they can beat Rutgers, they can beat Iowa. I mean, there is a path for Michigan State to reach what I thought was their preseason ceiling of 9-3, because they have the talent and the coaching staff to utilize said talent to win several close games and to be involved with several upsets. And that is Michigan State's, best case scenario. They're not going to win 8 or 9 games and only have one possession win. This team is not dominant enough. They're not cohesive enough. They don't have enough of high ceiling X factor players to, both blow out Indiana and Rutgers and Iowa and also beat Michigan and also beat Oregon. No. But they can, beat Indiana by a score. They can beat Illinois by a score. Maybe they beat Rutgers by a score too. Iowa always plays teams close, and they have some issues in their secondary. And Michigan hasn't exactly pulled away from anyone this year until several minutes into the game. So I look at the Spartans, and they have a massive opportunity. And in this game, controlling the clock, putting up 40 points, putting up over 400 yards, and really 27-0 at the half. They scored the majority of their points in this blowout victory in the first half, and then they rested their starters, got Tommy Schuster involved, Brandon Tulis was involved in the ground game, backup freshman running back, and young receivers got involved. Same with younger defenders. So I was impressed with Michigan State from their performance on Saturday. Was it a world-beating performance? No, but Michigan State, again, they're in year 1 with a new coaching staff, with the majority of their roster being new, suffering a lot of turnover from the previous regime, which honestly benefited the Spartans. Yes, it's going to be a rebuild for either 1 year or more likely than not 2 or 3 years, but I think it's clear based off of these first 3 weeks that Jonathan Smith is taking Michigan State somewhere, and it's somewhere with promise. We'll have to see if that promise, if that potential fulfills and how it plays out. But that's a story for potentially years from now. Certainly over a year, or maybe even over 2 years from now. Because what he inherited, I'll tell you this, What Jonathan Smith inherited was probably just as bad, if not potentially worse than what Mel Tucker inherited from Mark D'Antonio. I mean, it was last year's Michigan State team was disheveled. They had almost no talent on offense. The defense was horrific with Scotty Hazelton being Scotty Hazelton, and let's not pretend like Jay Johnson was anything special either. And there you go. Overall, I think Michigan State is improving, and I've said that time and time again, and I will continue to say that until I'm proven wrong. And this weekend against Boston College, they have a chance to make it to 4-0. They would beat a team who competed with Missouri, and they could enter that Ohio State game undefeated, and that would probably be a loss, but in college football, you never know. I didn't expect, and I don't think anyone expected, Kentucky to play Georgia within a point, but they did. So you just have to work with what you have, and Michigan State and their staff have done a phenomenal job with that. Aiden Childs is a lot like Dylan Raiola, too. Their ceiling is limitless. I wouldn't be shocked if next season those two are like the top two quarterbacks in the Big Ten. There's a world where that is possible. Of course, you got to remember Drew Aller exists, Miller Moss exists, Oregon is Dante Moore, and Ohio State will have someone, whether that's, Devin Brown or Julian Sayin, but it's possible, and it wouldn't shock me based off of what I've seen from those two quarterbacks. My MVP of this game is Charles Brantley. Charles Brantley had a pick six returned for a touchdown, and he, that's a big deal. I think that's a big deal, not just for him, but also for the secondary, because this secondary has struggled in the past at creating turnovers, creating explosive plays, and they did this past Saturday. And Charles Brantley is a player that, with injuries, he is becoming a bigger part of this defense. On the season, he has 8 total tackles, 6 solo, 2 interceptions, 1 against Maryland, 1 against Prairie View A&M, and he has 3 passes defended, with a pass defended in every one of the games that he's played in. He was a big part of the reason why Michigan State, at any point this season, has been able to get off the field. He has played well thus far. So he's my MVP for this game, and that's all I have to say in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe, like the video, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. Thanks to Crash2488 and Braska Rascal for being Heisman members and sponsoring this video and channel. Thanks to Chris Lynn, Cuddle OH, Ismar, Tyler Nye, and Jolton Cush for being All-American members and sponsoring this video and channel. And thanks to John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janisha Cockrell for sponsoring this video and channel as all-conference members. If you want to support the channel, you can check out my merchandise store or my Patreon page via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Have a great day, guys. Go green, go white.